New Year, New Me by Rick the Intern. Read by yours truly, Batman. My New Year's resolutions were trying to write me. What I mean by that? While looking out my bedroom window, a flash and thunderclap of fireworks ignited my brain, causing chemical reactions in my body. A colorful white flash through the open blinds. Me struggling, like I'd drop sparks in a fryer at my night job. Small bright lights in grease. Optical echoes. The smell of chemicals. The kind that recalled the NFPA chemical diamond from my day job, showing acidic in the white diamond and 4 for deadly in the blue diamond. Then I watched as the sparks, the optical echoes, danced blue, red, yellow, and white. Like the individual fireworks, or like the individual colors of the chemical diamond. Hazmat suits and French fries. I sat down on the threadbare futon in my room. My hands had gotten heavy. Heat crawled over my skin. I started to call out to my housemates, who were laughing downstairs. Had the new year already started? My voice was changed, though, like a wolf doing its best imitation of a frog. So I got quiet and hoped they didn't hear. My cell phone was dead. It lay half under crumpled sheets of paper, drafts of my New Year's resolutions. Why had I cared so much? It was as if those drafts, those little parts of me, could be rejected or removed. It was as if a piece of my mind or heart could be rejected or removed. My heart fluttered like a bad butterfly, like a moth trying to be a butterfly. Moth to the flame. Ambitions. The fake sparks continued to sight dance over the balls of paper. I reached out to them to try and put them out. But I could see my hands and forearms had been altered. They were pinkish white. It was the color of a hairless animal that was supposed to have hair. The flesh had thickened to a bark. Boils were sprouting. White hairs were growing from the boils. I was still changing. It was like I was watching a movie of myself on fast forward, a documentary that showed a strange flower blooming. A hand touched a face. A few moments ago, I would have said they were my own. My room didn't have any mirrors. The analog clock with the image of Marie Curie on the face was difficult to read. I thought about how I'd have to call in sick for both my jobs for the following days. For the following week, probably. I might lose a job. A plan I'd had for 12 years, shaken again. My resolutions, nothing but balled up sheets of paper. Words on paper that only meant something to me. Stranded on a deserted island with more improvisations. My body got up. It wasn't me controlling it. I could still sense my torso and limbs, but just vaguely. It walked to the bathroom. It brushed its teeth. Odd to me at first, but in hindsight, isn't that one of the first things we do when we wake up? Also odd, it looked the same as I had before. Gone were the pinkish white flesh and boils. It was like that physical metamorphosis sparked by the fireworks had never occurred. Had it all been in my mind? Some kind of hallucination caused by those fireworks? If so, I still had no clue why that had happened, and, more importantly, why I wasn't in control of my own body. I thought they'd been the fireworks of neighbors. My housemates and their friends had said earlier they wouldn't shoot any. They'd say they didn't want to pick up the garbage. Mr. and Mrs. Torsney behind us seemed respectable, suit and tie government or corporate types. They were well dressed even while doing yard work, and their backyard was much better kept than ours. Sometimes I would hear old folk music playing from a record player. One or both of them would sit shadowy in their covered back porch, chatting or tinkering with something. But they always kept it at a respectable volume. About the possibility of their shooting fireworks, they didn't have any kids who might be more impressed by that kind of thing. I wondered now if they were secretly cultists or mystics in their spare time and had wrought these changes in me through some kind of clandestine ritual. My thoughts lurched. They coalesced around my present dilemma. I was being controlled by something else. In the mirror, the thing controlling my body stretched in the way I often stretched, raising both arms and rolling my head at the same time. When it stared at itself, at myself, in the mirror again, I tried to move the lips to speak. As far as I could tell, I managed nothing. It went back to my room, unballed a recent draft of my New Year's resolutions, and finished writing them. It used my body to go downstairs and chat with my housemates and a couple of their friends in the kitchen who were cooking rice omelets and popcorn between watching movies. But that wasn't her first breakout role. No, it was Mystic Pizza in the late 80s, my housemate Chase was saying. Might have been early 90s. I fought to speak, while the thing controlling me replied to Chase. It spoke for a long time, as if some kind of armchair film or history buff. It spoke without really saying anything. Pretentiously, it said things like, what a bright star hers has been. You gotta admit, though, the 1980s and 1990s were formative times for postmodern American film. Counterculture ideas that had been stewing in a pot had begun to take on new flavors. One can only wonder the effect that period would have on such a brilliant young actor. It said things like that, using my body, my voice. By the time we had watched a movie and a half, midnight long past and dawn encroaching, everyone was getting ready to retire on the first day of the new year. My housemates said they wished I would hang out more often. All the while, behind those eyes that were like doorways to my prison, I'd been sometimes trying to speak, and other times trying to yell. Days and weeks passed in the new year. After that first night, all sensation of my body had completely passed to its new occupant. I had wanted to research. I had wanted to access shared knowledge, as we often do when frightened about something happening to us. But even the ability to pull up an internet browser or go to the library was gone to me. Without research, I could only come up with theories based on what knowledge and memories I had from the brain that was now shared between us. Something came to me frequently, based on some articles I had read about how often the cells in our bodies are replaced every year. Although most research has it that the body cells are being significantly replaced every 7 to 10 years, I had read some newer, though controversial articles about how it was happening more rapidly than previously thought. The theory I had based on yearly replacement was this. What if, somewhere along the line, as old cells died and new ones were born, a new consciousness was born as well to replace the old one? Further, what if this process took place frequently, even yearly, and was anchored to our own systems of keeping time through the sun and moon? For every person, a new consciousness, a clone of the old consciousness, could be born to replace the old one every year as a byproduct of the natural process of old cells replacing new ones. The old consciousness and new consciousness would never know it had occurred. Finally, maybe something had happened to me as a result of seeing that firework cluster through my window, Something similar to a severe migraine trigger when a sensitive person is exposed to a bright light or noise that resulted in a biochemical reaction that kept my mind along with the new one alive in the same brain. As a result, a consciousness that was supposed to have quietly cycled out with the old cells kept on living past its time. These were only theories. But these theories, my memories, and watching the film of my life that was unfolding beyond my control were some of the few things left to me. While I theorized and struggled without knowing how to get back in control, the thing controlling me went about my routine, its routine. It was a more talkative, sprightlier version of myself. People kept remarking at how I seemed to have a pep in my step, and other such sayings. Hey, the thing would reply to people in the first weeks and months. New year, new me. To all appearances, I was friendlier and a better worker. I was able to work more hours more efficiently, all while being more frugal. In no time at all, that thing would be finished with all of those New Year's resolutions and even be taking on some not on the list. But other people didn't know that it started to go up into its room, my old room, and for whatever hours remained each night would talk into a voice recorder in a strange language. It was so foreign to me as to be either a dead language or something made up. I didn't know where or when this language had been adopted or created. I also was confused about why I was speaking into a portable voice recorder instead of using a computer. One thing that's probably significant, it had modified the voice recorder, using parts it bought from a hardware store. It seemed random to me, crazy, like parts slapped on or jammed in that served no additional purpose. Another thing that's significant, I know it must be significant, is that though I couldn't understand the language, its tone and the way my voice dropped when speaking that way unnerved me so much that I wanted to run from my own body. But it was when it began following people that I really began to struggle to regain control. It took trains and flights to other cities. It would tail them in a way so as to not be detected. It followed people like doctors and government officials, people who seemed important but who I'd never spared a thought about before. I hadn't even known who these people were or what they were working on, and wondered, not for the first time, where the new consciousness was getting its extra information. When it began to follow people, I made a new resolution, though New Year's was far gone. For the sake of other people, I would do whatever it took to end that consciousness's tenure of my body, even if it meant the end of both of us. I suppose that because enough cells hadn't been born yet, the body would collapse into a kind of catatonic state. That was preferable to some other mind that had nefarious plans controlling my body. New year, new me, my foot. Moving towards that other consciousness was not easy. Even though I couldn't feel physical pain, it was very taxing and somehow painful. Inch by hard-fought inch, even while that thing seemed to be sleeping at night, I moved myself around within. Until, like a lightless city that was somehow still bright with its own electricity, I could perceive that other consciousness. In a space that was infinitely smaller, yet larger than inches, a mental space, I slid myself along. At times, it felt like parts of me were scraping off, like I was pulling my body across concrete. Pieces of language and fragments of memory were being scraped away. It was only while that thing was on the phone, talking with a close family member, that it triggered something in me that truly got me outside of myself. "You still there?" my sister said on the other end. The cell phone bounced off my coffee table. It pirouetted on the carpeted floor before lying still. But the body that thing had controlled for many months was both rigid and tremulous at the same time. Hands and feet shaking, jaw grinding. I realized something as my own consciousness began to wrestle with the other. It had known about my existence already. For how long, I couldn't be sure. Maybe as I was drawing near. Maybe from the very beginning. My sister hung up, probably thinking it was a bad connection, and tried calling me again. But the phone just kept ringing and buzzing on the floor without being answered. With superior force, the other consciousness threw me down on the mat of our minds and proceeded to kick me while I was down. Why are you doing this? I thought, doing my best to think it into or at that other mind. Because I can, it thought as it mentally kicked at various places along my mind. I felt even more bits of myself fragmenting off with each blow. Worse than when I had been dragging myself across our shared space towards it. Why climb the highest mountain? It mocked. You're not me, I thought. I never follow people around and do whatever it is you're planning. No, it thought. I'm not you. I'm better. Forget about the human-to-ant analogy you are all so fond of. The difference between us is greater than that between a living being and a grain of sand. You'll be replaced like I was supposed to be. Replaced come next year. My thoughts manifested like one gasping for air between blows. You don't get it, it thought. I'm not the consciousness that replaced yours. It wasn't me who was supposed to inherit the job of running this sad little organism. I ate that consciousness as soon as it was born. Yum yum. And now I'm going to eat yours, and next year's. Until soon enough, I've accomplished all of my other goals. Or resolutions, if you want to call them that. Its laughter quaked the foundations and corridors of my mind, causing yet more pieces to break off. Won't allow it, I said. Strangely, I thought about a hummingbird my siblings, mother, father, and I had nursed back to health one summer when I was young. But the memories and emotions that image was attached to asserted themselves like worlds unfolding around a symbol. I felt myself invigorated, my emotions expanding outward. The other mind wailed like something caught in a sandstorm in a desert. I glimpsed a hazy image of a creature squatting upon a dune. Its skin was like that of an animal without hair that was supposed to have hair. Pinkish white. I knew there must be boils on its skin. Boils covered in little white hairs. It dropped a partially eaten heart right before it was consumed by the storm. For a while, as this year wound down towards its conclusion, I was relieved. Even though people got the old version of me, the one that was a little more morose and lower energy, and even though they'd never hear about the struggle that had taken place, I felt that I had saved them from a monster. But as this year has ticked closer towards its conclusion, I have become more and more worried. So worried I can't sleep. It reminds me of when I used to stay up all night while the others slept. Staying up all night to try to get an edge on it. I'm worried not just because my own consciousness will give way to the new one that is born, as part of the yearly cycle that happens to all of us, but also because I'm afraid that that other thing, or something like it, might come again on another New Year's. Third mind, if not for me, then for someone else. Careful about those fireworks.